Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bits and Bibles podcast, Episode 1, God and Technology. I'm your host, Zachariah Collins, and today's episode is going to be a little bit of an introduction and just introducing myself a little bit, and you guys learning a little bit about me, where the idea for this podcast came from, and so on. And then we're going to talk a little bit about where I feel God stands with technology. Is he for it? Is he against it? How does technology fit into the Christian lifestyle and theology? So let's hop into this. For starters, like I said, my name is Zachariah. I'm a graduate of Charis Bible College. I grew up in the church. Both my parents were and still are devout Christians. I've always enjoyed technology, although up until about the time I was getting out of college, I really took into it as a career. But beforehand, I still just enjoyed it. Growing up in church, you experience a lot of things about Christianity, some good, some bad, but the one thing is that I also not only got the opportunity to grow up in church, but my parents, for a good chunk of my life, especially when I was living with them, they were a part of church, the church staff, whether volunteer, paid positions, sometimes in leadership, sometimes someone under leadership. I mean, we all are under leadership, but sometimes they were the person leading. But the interesting part is that I got a insider's perspective on church, and not just as a congregation member, but also on the really insider's perspective of growing up as almost essentially a pastor's kid. I pretty much grew up alongside the pastor's kids. And so, both good and bad, as I believe I mentioned, I got to experience a lot of church and a lot of Christianity and Christian doctrine and different ideas about Christianity and different people's interpretations and opinions. I was homeschooled for pretty much all of my life, and after that I graduated high school and I went straight into Bible school. I attended Charis Bible College for 4 years. I did my first 2 years starting in 2012, and I graduated in 2014. And then I did two of their 1-year tracks. I did business, and then I did missions. After that, I then got an opportunity. I was working at a coffee shop at the school, and the owner of the coffee shop came to me and said, "Hey," he helped run the IT department. He said, "Hey, there's an internship program." We had talked a little bit about IT, but he was like, "Are you interested?" And I mentioned that I was, and so I interviewed for the internship position, and I got it along with one other guy. His name was JB, and I got this. That was my introduction into IT. I mean, I'd always tinkered with computers, but it was very much, and even in high school, actually, I got a chance to work under a guy named Jeremy for I think it was a couple of summers doing, I think it was just one, doing a kind of an IT internship for him and his ran out of his home IT business. But this was beyond that, this was my first real exposure to IT as a career. And what was interesting about that, and it was a neat opportunity, was part of our requirement was, so we spent, I believe it was 6 months to a year, and I believe it was about a year, and we were part of the IT department. We were on help desk. We were helping right alongside. But we got a chance to really get exposed to a lot of the stuff that goes into IT because, Charis Bible College is not only the Bible college, but it's affiliated with Angel Arc Ministries. So then we had a large nonprofit, a Bible school, and then part of that was also like a call center that, was part of the both the school and the ministry. So very quickly you got exposed to a lot of different things, and it was a really neat opportunity, and it's what got me into IT. But it also gave me an interesting perspective. I'd always kind of seen technology's role in ministry, but then now, suddenly, I was not only just kind of seeing it as an enthusiast, but I was actually being a part of the infrastructure that made it happen. But even back when I was going to business school and in mission school, but especially in business school, I noticed this. We would spend a lot of time with the school's ministry track that was helping people develop churches and other nonprofit ministries, Christian ones, and helping them to get them off the ground as part of the program. And one thing that was really interesting was, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot throughout this podcast probably, is I noticed that there was kind of this interesting thing. You would see people, and this really went for almost any of the tracks, maybe except media, because they had a track that was focused on media, and those guys were fairly techie themselves usually, or if they weren't, the people instructing the media school were usually fairly pretty techie themselves. I noticed this a lot with especially business and ministry, was people would get an idea, and they would, again, Christian. So, and I want to say this real quick. I just want to take a little detour here. I'm a Christian, and as I mentioned even in the trailer, I'm a Christian, and I look at this from the perspective of growing up in Christian nonprofits and ministries, and that's even kind of who I'm targeting here a little bit with this podcast. But I hope if you're listening to this and you're not a Christian, that you'll still take these tools and at least listen to what I have to say about them, because I think whether you have a ministry or a business or a nonprofit of just even any kind, doesn't have to be just a ministry, but a nonprofit of any kind, the stuff I'm going to talk about here applies. It's not just for one type. It's stuff that applies across any kind of ministry, nonprofit, business, wherever. But to get back around to what I was saying, I noticed this problem. People would get a great idea, whether it was a business idea or a ministry idea or a nonprofit idea. And they would start, and as part of the program, you had to get into teams and develop this and present it as part of your classes for each of those tracks. And I noticed people would get this idea, as I mentioned. They would run with it. They would get really excited about it. And all of a sudden, they'd run into a wall, much like if any of you guys have ever watched the old Roadrunner cartoons, when Wiley would draw a painting of like a road, and the Roadrunner come down, and he would run right through the painting and keep running on it like it was actually a road there. And then Wiley would look at it, look confused, look at the audience, and then he'd wind up, run, and he would just run smack into that thing and just hit it. I mean, just at a dead run. And it was kind of funny because after, growing up watching a lot of those cartoons, when I got to there, I noticed kind of a similar scenario. People would get all these excited about these ideas they had, and then they would run smack into a wall, and that wall was technology. Whether it was website design, social media platforms, email systems, texting systems, live streaming, any of these, it was technology, some type of digital-based media or tool or system that they would run smack into, and you'd see this like blank look of like, what do I do? Like, how on earth am I supposed to navigate this and take my great idea and let it flourish? And, as I watched that during my 2 years of third year track, especially, is when I noticed it. It really got me thinking about what a need there was in a lot of these areas for technological understanding. A lot of ministries and a lot of nonprofits and even small businesses, suffer from a lack of technological guidance. And it's kind of heartbreaking because there's a lot of things these organizations and businesses bring to the table. There's a lot of really incredible smaller nonprofits, ministries, and businesses that are just doing great things. Maybe they're not doing them to the scale of well-known ones, but they're still doing incredible things. And it's just amazing to see how much of a limitation IT is because they just don't know. They don't know what to do, and it leaves them in kind of the state of like, oh my gosh, like how? And then they're looking around and they're trying to find answers, and it becomes stressful, and it's this complicated process that just, I know people that literally have told me, and I genuinely believe them, that they're scared of technology. And it kind of breaks my heart because technology, I believe, to be an amazing tool that it can just give people the opportunity to just expand whatever they're doing to a degree that previous generations didn't have. Ever so quickly with the right tools and technology, you can take your ideas and just throw them across halfway around the world in a matter of minutes, not even hours, minutes. You can be halfway around the world and somebody can watch your video or hear your podcast or read your digital book or whatever in minutes. An idea and a concept that many generations before us thought to be impossible or like just beyond belief that you could do that. And you can have distribution on just an incredible scale, with video platforms and online book publishing platforms and social media. You can take something and just distribute it to a degree that's just never been seen before in human history. You see throughout history that mankind has pulled off many amazing feats of getting a message somewhere, but not to the degree with the simplicity per se too. What would take hundreds of people in centuries past can be done by one person today. One person from a cell phone. It doesn't even have to be some incredible new technology. It can be an inexpensive, by today's standards, I guess, smartphone. And somebody can take that idea and just run with it. And so it's just left me with this rather interesting dilemma that it's gnawed at me for years, and I finally was just able to kind of put it into a form that I felt I could actually share and explain. And I hope, as you listen to this podcast, that the information I give you here can be used to help you further your goal. That's really my heart in this, is to take what I've learned and I should have given a little more of my story, so I'll go here. 5 years of technology. So I spent almost 2 years at Charis Bible College and Andrew Wallach Ministries, and then after that, me and my wife felt led to go to Missouri, and I got a job with Emery Sapp & Sons based out of Columbia, Missouri, and my career just took off to another level with that job, and it just grew, and I was given opportunities. I had a really awesome team around me and a great boss named Clayton, and some good coworkers, Mark and Dave, and just some incredible guys I got to work with that just helped me to grow my career exponentially. And that company it helped me to grow in a way that I've just learned talking to other people. It was I believe it was a God opportunity. And then we moved back here, and I picked up a job with a local MSP here in town, Stepping Forward Technology, and I've been working there for a little over a year now. And again, another opportunity that I've gotten to just expand my career. But at all of these jobs, I've just had this gnawing sensation, and this is now a little over 5 years into my career. I've just had this gnawing. Oh, actually, it's been almost 6 actually. I'm sorry, I need to correct that. Almost 6 years. Wow. I've had this gnawing feeling of like people need the tools that technology offers, and people can't because they just don't know. And it's not that people are automatically against it. Sometimes I've found people are just, they don't know where to start. They look at IT and it's so vast and it's so huge that they just genuinely don't have a clue where to start. And the goal of this here is to kind of help take some of the stress off of technology and empower people. I want to empower people to grow in this area. Just like I have had people at every one of my jobs invest in me and invest in helping me grow. Not even just because it was a profit to them, but just because they were just wanting to see me grow, and I appreciate that. I've had an opportunity to work with some really amazing people in my career. I want to help pass on these tools to you guys, to you, my listeners, and I want to see you guys grow in this area and take what tools I can help you learn, and hopefully a little bit of like guidance I can give, and just take whatever you're doing, whatever God's put on your heart, whatever nonprofit, ministry, or business you've come up with an idea for, and just grow it. That's my heart there, and that's really what I want to see. Hopefully, I mean, I honestly don't know if this podcast is really going to go anywhere or get more than just a few friends of mine to listen that have already said they like the idea. Who knows? It might I might listen to this years from now, and it's just the 5 people that heard me talk about this that thought it was great, or who knows, maybe it'll grow someday. But I think this is something that could grow. But my biggest thing is if the one thing I would call a win of this podcast is the opportunity to hear people say, hey, I took the information and it helped me to grow. And, I'm not looking I'm looking to just help people grow. And if you like what you hear, you can check out more about us or me and this podcast and support it at bitsandbibles.com. You can always, I'll be posting more information there, and I'll be, you can support the page and the kind of this podcast from there. If you like what you hear, but I'm putting this out there for free because I want to see ministries and nonprofits have a fighting chance, because there's a lot of information out there, and if you're someone trying to start one of these, you're probably sitting there, this could be you're sitting there looking at all this information going, what on earth am I going to do with this information? Like, not the podcast, but like, you have your nonprofit. Well, how do I build a website? What is a domain? How do I start a social media channel, a page? How do I start a channel? How do I get email going? How do I get my domain to be an email? How do I tell my supporters my story? How do I live stream? All these pieces. I want to help give people the opportunity and at least some guidance to get them pointed in the right direction, that you can grow and you can excel. And, I don't think there's ever going to be a time that this information will be invaluable, at least not for a long time. Technology is not going anywhere. I believe technology will be here till Christ returns, and it's just going to keep growing. So whatever I can do to help you succeed, that's my goal in this. So, I will always keep this podcast free, and I hope it just blesses you. And I hope you can hear my heart in this for why I'm wanting to do this. To kind of get on a little bit to our topic here of God and technology, is I want to ask the question, and I'm just going to be quiet for a minute to let you kind of think through your thoughts for a minute. I have a question, which is God against technology? I want you to really sit there and think about that for a minute. Is God against technology? Now that you've had a minute, just sit there and think about it. I want to give you my answer. I think it's no. Now, maybe that's obvious because I work in technology as a Christian, so it would seem a bit conflicting if I thought God thought it was evil. But here's the thing. Technology is a tool. It isn't bad and it isn't good. Technology is simply a reflection of the person using it, the heart of the person using it, their emotion, their wants, their desires, their whatever's inside of them. It just amplifies. The Bible says that out of the heart man speaks, and technology is simply just a tool that amplifies that. And it's interesting when you look around society, you see technology used in so many different ways. Hackers are a common buzzword thrown around technology, and especially around users and pop culture. I don't know if any of you have ever heard this, but the tools and technology that a hacker uses, and a guy who is paid to keep a hacker out, and in technology we call them red team and blue team, red team being attackers and blue team being defense, those people use the same tools. They have the same training. It's the same skill sets. It's just simply what they're doing with it, where hackers are typically going out to look for a way to destroy, and defenders are looking for ways to protect. People may not like this idea, but it's no different, in my opinion, than how people than a gun or a hammer or a pen. A pen they say the pen is mightier than the sword, and Writers throughout history have both used a pen for good and for evil, and have done good and done harm with it. People have taken weapons and have used it to protect life, and others have used it to destroy it. It's a tool. And that's one of the first things I think people need to realize, is that technology, and I'm going to repeat this again, is not, in my opinion, inherently bad or good. It's just a reflection. People that do illegal stuff, people that cyberbully, people that tear people's lives apart and try to destroy things, that's a heart issue. And technology isn't evil because of that, but instead it's that people using technology do evil things, and the technology simply amplifies that evil. Just like people who are looking to help people and grow people and expand people and bring people up to a better place are using technology, and that technology is being used for good. And I want to start with that, because people need to have that understanding. Much of technology has always been about communication. It was a way to transmit information from one person to another, to share an idea, to share a thought. Technology, people go, oh, well, technology, and many people get kind of hung up on the new stuff. But I want to kind of give some examples here of other things throughout history that were, that were technologies. The invention of paper. That was a technology at one point. At one point, that was cutting edge paper, the thing that we all have got probably a stack of sitting in some printer somewhere we don't use. At one point in time, that was groundbreaking technology. The stone tablet, if you really want to go back, at one point was probably an advancement in technology. I wasn't there, but I'm just going to take a guess. Think of the printing press. Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-1400s inventing the printing press. That was a technology, and it was about communicating an idea. The radio was an idea, in the mid to late 1800s and into the 1900s. That was an invention, and again, communication. And Thomas Edison with the phonograph in the late 1800s, and the television in the early 1900s, and the internet in the late 1900s. These are all things that have been used to communicate. Look at today. There's not even an excuse anymore to not keep up with somebody. I have friends that live in other parts of the world that I can very much easily keep up with, and if I felt like it, I could be on a phone call with them that fast. There's nothing stopping me from doing that. And that's the incredible thing, is it's allowed mankind to communicate on a level that we've not seen before. But every one of those technologies building up to it, every one of those technologies somebody has used for the betterment of mankind, and somebody's used for the destruction of mankind, to build people up or to tear people down, to enhance or to hinder. Because again, it comes back down to the heart issue of it. There's always going to be something that is competing with you. If you're a business that makes cars, you're going to have someone else make different cars. You're also going to have somebody who makes different modes of transportation. If you're a ministry that's fighting who's maybe pro-life, you're going to always have companies that are pro-choice. You're going to have just different things where there's differing opinions. And I know I've talked on a few hot topics here, but they're just very common examples of where there's differences of opinion, and both sides use technology to communicate their message. And you have this thing where you deal with technology no matter what you're going to do, unless you decide to live in under a rock. And even then, you can probably still get a wireless signal. You're always going to be dealing with technology. You can't escape it, even if you wanted to. And there are people who try, but it's still, in theory, even when people go out to the most remote places of the world, you could probably still find some kind of technology. And I have to laugh because people, well, I got away from the technology. Well, you got away from a form of technology, but even if you got away from electronic technology, I hate to break it to you, If you've ever used a wheel, that's technology. People are always advancing. Mankind's always looking to improve things. And so you just have this interesting concept where technology is always going to be around, and it's usually for bringing people together and for simplifying things. People have always looked for simpler, better ways to do things, and that innovation's been seen, the invention of paper. And then somebody was like, well, we have paper now, so now we can write things. And then they went, hey, we could do a printing press and write more things faster. And then came out the typewriter and the computer, and it all became doing something faster and better. The thing is, you see throughout history where the Bible's been influential in the lives of many people in technology, Gutenberg being one of them. He was printing Bibles. I believe technology, and the other thing is that technology has allowed the common man. This is something you see throughout history where the rich and powerful of the world have tried to keep people under control. And I'm not just picking on any particular group. You've seen this from many different religions. Unfortunately, you've seen people take Christianity and manipulate it to keep people down. You've seen every major religion, you've seen every major ideology at some point try to use technology both for good and for what I would consider evil. And the thing is that technology has given the common man the tools and abilities always of bettering himself. Now, of course, he's sometimes used it to worsen himself too, but he's always had the potential to better himself. Look at crowdfunding things. You see a moment where somebody goes through a tragedy and people pull together and using technology get resources to that person and are able to aid that person, and they may not even be in the same country as them. And they can do it quickly. It's a blink of an eye. You send your donation and 2 minutes later, dings on their phone. From halfway around the world. I mean, just at speeds we've just never seen before. But I believe that Christianity needs to embrace technology, not avoid it. When you think about the Great Commission, in Mark 16, 15, and 16, it says, and he said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned. But it's go into all the world. Everywhere. In Luke 14, verse 23, Jesus is telling a parable, and the master, who is a representation of God, tells his servants, go into the highways, the hedges, and compel them to come, that my house may be filled. Back in the day, literally, and in verse 21, it also says, go out quickly to the streets and the lanes of the city and bring here the poor and the maimed and the lame and the blind. God's always been looking to draw people in. And at one point, highways, there's still obviously highways and hedges and streets and lanes, but now we have a new highway. We have the digital one, and we have new streets, the digital ones, and we have new hedges, digital. And we have these new opportunities to reach people at a scale that we've never seen throughout human history before. If we were to go back 30, 40 years, and I told somebody that from your cell phone, you're going to shoot a high quality video 10 times better, and that's not a perfect number, but 10 times better than what the best technology can shoot right then. And you'll be able to shoot it from your phone and upload it to somewhere. And within 2 minutes of you uploading it, somebody on the other side of the planet can watch the entire video. Or even one better. I tell them, from your phone, you're going to be able to do a live video from just your phone and talk to somebody who is halfway around the world in real time. I think a lot of people might have looked at you like you were crazy. Because technology wasn't there. But we have this opportunity now, and I think Christians need to embrace it and grab onto it and realize that this is an opportunity, and I believe a God-given opportunity to use technology to further the gospel. And if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this, again, I hope whatever nonprofit or business you're running, you're one of the ones looking to aid your fellow man and not tear them down. And if you aren't, I hope you take some time and think about that. If you are, I hope you listen to this and realize that technology is an opportunity to help you aid your fellow man even better. There's something I thought was really neat in Romans, and this is kind of Romans 10:14, and this is a little bit of the soapboxy part of this podcast, but we will get back to the tech, I promise. In Romans 10:14, it says, "How then can they call on him who they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him who they've not heard? And how shall they hear without a preacher? And how shall they preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel of peace, who bring glad tidings of good things. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For as Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed our report? So faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. But I say, have ye not heard? Yes, indeed, their sound has gone out to all the earth, and their words to the ends of the world." I want you to think about that. Words to the ends of the world. Literally, I can put you, using technology, on the other side of the world in real time, live. And the first part of this little scripture I just read, this little passage of scripture, talks about how can they call on him who they haven't believed? How can they believe in him if they haven't heard? How can they hear if there's no one to preach? And how can they preach if they're not sent? With technology, you can send yourself halfway around the world. Now, I still think there are people that need to go out and physically go. But there's also people that can literally sit at home, turn on their phone, and preach the gospel halfway around the world. And I'm talking people preaching back here because I believe America needs the gospel more again. Genuine, true gospel, not stale, stuffy, organized religion. I'm talking passionate, Bible-believing gospel that changes lives, that builds people up and raises them up out of what they're in. And again, if you're not a Christian ministry and you're listening to this, think about that still. You can do whatever thing you're doing to aid your fellow man. Technology can literally put you halfway around the world doing that, sharing your ideas, sharing your concepts, sharing what you want to tell people across the entire planet in real time. And a lot of these tools are free. You're not even paying for them. You kind of are on some of them, but that's a whole nother discussion. But you're not buying this app. You're not buying this tool. A lot of these are for free. Most you're spending is whatever your phone is, and you're already paying for that anyway. So everything after that isn't costing you any extra. I hope people really take some of this to heart that I've talked about. Like I said, technology has created a new type of highway and byway, and folks, I believe it's something that's sorely lacking. The world is a dark, twisted, messed up place, and honestly, regardless of if you're a Christian or not, I think you would agree with me that this world is just jacked up, on a lot of different levels. And there's an opportunity to change the world for the better, and to bring hope to people who probably don't feel like they have much hope. Again, whether you're a Christian nonprofit or ministry or not, you have an opportunity to bring hope. And I hope whoever's hearing this, whether you're Christian or not, that's what your goal is of your nonprofit, your ministry, your business, is to better the lives of people, whether it's your employees, your own family, your supporters, your customers. I believe technology is an amazing tool to better the life of people, give people opportunities they never had, and help people communicate and bridge gaps. Unfortunately, many times nowadays it feels like it's mostly to divide, but I think it can also be to unite. So, I want to invite you guys to join me on this podcast as we go through all this technology. I hope that what I've talked about today in this first episode is just spoken to you, and I hope it's at least piqued your interest. And I want to thank you for joining me today as we start this journey. And I hope you will be back for our next podcast here soon. And very soon we'll start getting into a lot more of the tech stuff. But I just wanted to take this first one and really just share my heart. So thank you for joining us. and have a great rest of your day.